Right, here we are. It's Sunday again, so it's been a week. Day 6 of me ramping up the food. Obviously 7 days that the food's now been going in. So what I'm going to do today is give you my first impressions of using Saki-Hikari in the first week. What I'll do is piece together a few videos I did over the week as I was feeding differently to show you the fish. And then I'll give you sort of my overall review at the end. So I hope you enjoy, guys. One thing that's interesting about the food is on the left here we've got the Cuttlebrook food I've been using. On the right here I've got the Saki-Hikari. And the density, so both 1 cup, as you'll agree, 1 cup, feel the same, maybe even slightly more in the Saki cup, a little bit room on top of that one. If I weigh the Cuttlebrook food, it comes out 87 grams for 1 cup. If I weigh the same for the Saki, it comes out 75 grams. Now, that could be because this is a smaller pellet size, so obviously you're going to fit more in, but then it's a smaller pellet size, so they should be lighter. It could be because the food is actually denser, there's more density to this food. I don't know, maybe that's some of the ingredients that get used, maybe this is just a better, higher quality, but just thought it was interesting that was quite, you know, it's a fair whack. So 75 grams for the Saki, and 87 grams for the Cuttlebrook, so it's a what? 12 grams difference in 1 cup. So yeah, interesting. Right, so this is the third feed on day 1. Shows you this morning nitrite levels down. I'm not taking the cover off yet because I just want to show you how the fish appetite has changed, their reaction. I used to get some activity from some of them. They all, used to come up, want feeding. Now I'm getting it from all of them. So hopefully, I'll take this off, you'll see it live in action. Yeah, they've all increased in their activity, especially when I approach. I used to get some before on the other food, but I definitely feel like already they're more up for this. So even some of the shy feeders and the newer fish, they seem more interested in what we're putting in. So again, just going to feed them again. This will be the 4th feed today. Just want to show their activity again in terms of how the fish are responding to me approaching, thinking they're getting fed. Definitely been a change in their behaviour compared to the other food and the few short days that we've been doing this. So hopefully they'll show the activity I'm talking about. And yeah, straight away they're all up, they're all together. But like I said in the last one, even the shy feeders, like some who don't generally compete, like that big shower, as much as he's the biggest fish in there, he normally hangs around the bottom and he waits a lot of the time to come up. The new one, the new shower, this ISA shower here, again the same, wasn't really a boisterous feeder, but this stuff, completely different. So, let's chuck some in. Look at that shower there. That pleases me because obviously he's new and I really want him to grow, or her to grow, so it's a female. So I'm going to try, once I've sexed that other one, to breed those at some point. That's the plan. So yeah, there you go. Definitely more activity, definitely more voracious feeding from the normal suspects, but also from ones that, as I said, have been more subdued, more limited in their feeding. The other key thing is this is, like I said, day 2 of chucking this food in. I didn't clean it out last night. Water is looking a bit murky, but the fact is I haven't had to clean it yet, it hasn't blocked. So that is an improvement again from the other food. Obviously can't comment on growth or anything at this point. It's not been long enough, but they're the main things I'm looking at the moment. Okay, so day 3, 3rd full day. This will be today that I'm just about to start on using the food, not counting the adjustment day when I got the food at the weekend. So yeah, key point is still haven't changed the water, and this is my nitrite level when I start in the morning. So the reason I'm testing it every morning is, again, when you're feeding quite heavy throughout the day, you do get spikes of nitrite, but it's all about how quick that filter can process it. As long as it's got it out by the time I come back here in the morning, I'm not fussed about it. Do still have some about 0.3% salt rate running in there from when we had some new additions, which will slowly come down in the next water change. Like I said though, we're on day 3, so it's Wednesday. We've gone through Monday, Tuesday and today, and I have not had to clean the filter out or change the water. Let's have a look, slide back. As you can see, like I was saying on the first day, they're all anticipating being fed now, all of them, which the difference to before was only some of them. And again, like I've already said, the shy feeders much more competitive, which is good because some of my shy ones are some of my nicest ones, so if they can get the food on board, then brilliant. Yeah, so far so good. Still really early days. Obviously I'm not going to be able to comment on growth etc for a while. I don't know if I'm going to have to clean the filter today, haven't checked the level of it yet. Got some protein forming on the top, I'll get that anyway, but not as much as I have had. And like I said, hasn't been changed for a couple of days. So yeah, impressed so far. We'll see what the rest of the week brings. Right, to the first feed on day 3. Okay, so it's Friday, which makes it day 5 of me actually measuring what I'm putting in. Been feeding this now since Sunday, so still early days, but here we are. We're upping the food slowly every day. We'll be upping the feed now, so each feed will be 40 grams, just over half a cup. I'll take that off and zero it. We're going to be each feed today will now just be 40 grams. So 4 feeds, we'll be up to 160 grams today. We've moved on quite easily actually from the 80 that we started out at the start of the week. So yeah, we've doubled it in 5 days, which I struggled to do with the other food as quickly. So again, all about ramping up your food. You can't just chuck in the full amount at the end of one day because you'll just have a massive nitrite spike and kill your fish. Nitrite wise, perfect though. We're processing it still, so even though I'm up in the food level, we are still fine on the nitrite. So let's chuck some food in. First one of the day. I don't chuck it all in one go, I let them have the first sweep first. And then as soon as they've reduced most of that, I'll chuck in the second sweep. And you see, appetite is brilliant for all of them. Although, with the extra competition, some of them are starting to split their fins, which they haven't done before by fighting to get to the food. So hopefully as I increase the amount more, there'll be plenty of them to not fight over. So you can see most of this food dying down. So it's Sunday morning, so day 6 of ramping up the food. We are now on to, turn it on. We are on to 40 grams of feed. 40 grams of feed. And I've now upped this to 5 feeds a day. So I'll aim to get back to 6 feeds a day. As you can see, water, I mean it's not clean by any stretch of the imagination. I've got some protein forming on the top, which I'll show you the difference between that and the Cuttlebrook food that I was using. So yeah, going to tuck the food in. Today is water change day. I've done it once this week, so again that's a big improvement to that day again. So I do it late on Wednesday because I decided I couldn't hold it any longer. That was more about me. I probably could have left it, and I have done this time. So now it'll be Wednesday to Sunday, where it gets changed, just so I don't get caught midweek, or a couple of times midweek. So that, bearing in mind, before I was doing it every day. So anyway, it's the first feed today, and we'll see how they get on. I think in terms of the amount of food, I think 40 grams is probably the maximum per feed. I was thinking about upping it to 50, but I think there's enough floating on top after when they've had their first and second dive to now add any more. So I'll add in the sixth feed hopefully. Added the fifth in yesterday. Nitrite's still fine, still processing it, and that has really surprised me. But yeah, that's it. You see over the back, protein, a little bit of protein skim around the side, but nothing major. Like I'll see if I can find the picture, but I mean, where I salted, and obviously salt always makes it worse, that turned the Nexus into like a giant protein skimmer. It was all foaming out the side of the lids. There was loads of it, and I'm just not getting the same amount so far. Again, caveat, it's only been a week. Things could change, but generally you see these things straight away. I mean, there was one food I used it for a couple of days, and I'm not using that because it created a sulphur smell in the filter after 2 days. It was rank. Let me see if I can actually show you the difference in the protein. On the pool I've got set up outside, which is only going light feeding at the moment. There you go, you can see it's a much thicker white foam, almost creamy. And this is still getting fed the Cuttlebrook stuff. This doesn't run at the heated temperature, so this tracks the weather, which, well, apart from the sun being out at the minute, it's been cold and miserable. But yeah, you can see the protein has not formed in the indoor one the same as it has in the outdoor one. And this is under far less food as well. This is only getting 30 grams a day. It's a tiny bit more water as well, and it's on the Nexus, so not an awful lot of difference on that one. Well, the indoors doesn't have a UV. The one's out in the bulbs, and I've got to replace it. So yeah, you can see the difference in the protein. That white creaminess to little bits around the edge, so they've mixed it all in now, but we saw it before, so yeah. Okay, so conclusion time. Conclusion at the end of my first week, my initial impressions stroke review of this food. I will do long term, but this is literally just my first week of using it. Before I do that, I think it's just worth having a quick recap to keep this all in context of what I'm trying to achieve. Obviously people's uses will be different. I am using this food purely as a grow-on to maximise some of these fish potential. That's what I enjoy in the hobby. It's the best part of it, I think. I don't have an outside pond at the moment, but I've permanently built one. I'm literally just growing fish on, so when I get to the point of hopefully building my pond, I've got some of my own ready-made monsters to go in. Now, this is a 3,000 litre system, so it really is small. That's including the filter, so there's about 500 litres in there and roughly 2,500 in there, so you're talking 660 gallons. We are talking a very small amount of water capacity. So what I'm chucking in, obviously my water chemistry is going to be less stable because there's less of it compared to your average size pond. Now, when I talk about the food and the food I was using before, I had no issues with the Cuttlebrook food in terms of growth. I'm really impressed with what I've achieved over the last sort of 6-7 months using it, maybe slightly longer. How some of the bigger fish have come on. I've moved some of the other ones on now. Ones I just didn't like the pattern as much as I thought I did, or they changed, etc. But you know, that orange and white one, the Kikisui, was grown using the Cuttlebrook food, so I've got no issues with its growth, same as that Hiyutsuri, etc. But what has happened is where the fish have grown over the time that I'm using it, obviously the fish have all got fairly big. This Kikisui is over 40 centimetres. There was a few others that had caught up to similar sort of sizes, as there still are in there. I was having to reduce the food as the fish grew, and then I went from, at some points when they was all smaller, putting 500 grams in, that just slowly started going down to the point where the most I could get in was 160 grams a day. And obviously as the fish gets bigger, its need for the food, the protein, the nutrients is going to increase. So decreasing the food whilst the growth was increasing was just going to mean I was going up with no growth at all, and I was going back into maintenance levels of food. Plus the water wasn't that clean. So 160 grams was sort of the base target I wanted to get past. Smashed that this week. So then the next step will be moving that on to see if I can get it up into the realms of the 200, 300 grams and upwards, and see what we can achieve. But in terms of water quality, I'd got to a point where over the last few weeks, as you see in my other videos, I've had some nitrite issues, where I had an issue in that filter with the ring, the air in, which was not turning the media over properly. I lost a lot of bacteria, etc, etc. Got myself back to a position where I had the bacteria, but what I was unable to do was ramp the feed back up to where I was. And where I was sitting at 160 grams a day, spread across 4 feeds, sometimes 5, trying to spread out the nitrite spikes. But my nitrite spikes were getting so high, and it was collecting overnight. Especially once I added the bigger fish, it made me reduce the level that I was feeding throughout that period, which obviously is not ideal, especially when I've got small fish in there that I'm trying to grow on with this season as well. So yeah, it become a real problem in trying to ramp up the food. Now obviously when you're feeding for growth, you can't just decide one day I'm going to go and wallop a kilo of food in my pond. You start building it up slowly. You give your filter time to adjust. According to Evolution Aqua, there's 150 litres of K1 in that, or K1 plus, half of it is. That should be at least be able to have a minimum of 750 grams food a day. I'm going to call bullshit on that, because yeah, I don't know, I don't believe it's true. Media hype, but that will be a separate video, and I'll see what we can actually push it to. What I have been able to achieve, what I haven't been able to do the last few weeks again, is actually get the food up using Saki-Hikari. So the Saki-Hikari has literally, from the start of the week where we started off with 20 gram feeds 4 times a day, now yesterday I fed 40 grams each feed, and I introduced a 5th feed, so it was 200 grams. So I've already beaten the Cuttlebrook stuff that I was able to achieve recently with the bigger fish, compared to the Saki-Hikari in 1 week. So that has really impressed me. The water quality has stayed clear for longer. It's still like mud. You're probably sitting there thinking, yeah, that's great, Dave, that's not clear water. My water is never like gin. Like I said, it's a very small system. It changes very quickly. Water chemistry is never great because of the amount of fish that's in there and what I'm trying to do. However, it does work. But when I say it's cleaner, the filter is taking a lot more rubbish through it before it's blocking. I've cleaned it out once this week. I will clean it out again today. So it'll be twice in the 7-day period, as opposed to I was doing it every day. Occasionally I'd get away with every other day. So to do it twice in a week is a big step forward. The other thing I say when I say the water's cleaner, the breakdown of the waste seems to be different. It seems to be a little bit cloudier and less bitty. You'd find some bigger size sort of granules of organic waste floating around with the other food. With this one it doesn't, it seems to have all dissolved. Now I don't know if that's because it stays in the fish longer, and it's digested or processed more, but it's definitely interesting. The other element, which I touched on in one of the update videos when I was feeding them this morning, was the protein. The protein is not building up in the same way as it was on the Cuttlebrook stuff, where I was getting a thick creamy foam, really overactivating under the air bubbles when I put salt in. It's just not been the same in the Saki-Hikari, which means there's less protein and less organics in the water. So again, massive tick in the box. Away from the cleanliness of water, obviously I can't comment on growth in a week. It's ridiculous compared to the other food I've used for 6 months. But the fish themselves, their appetite, and you can see now they've just been fed and they're still up. Normally they used to go to the bottom and just have eaten and their appetite would subside. All of the fish have a bigger appetite and they seem to enjoy the food more. And this isn't just a mental perception, this is just watching the fish feed. Like the shy feeders particularly, the new Showa that I put in there recently, and some of the smaller ones, which, I mean this tiny little Ginrin Showa here, they weren't competing well on the other stuff. This stuff, they're up with the others and they're getting just as much of it, which obviously when it comes to growth, it's only going to be a good thing because they're actually getting the amount of food that they need who are required to do that. So yeah, really pleased with the fish behaviour, the competition that's going on. Obviously, the more they eat, the more they're going to grow, which is just brilliant from a growing point of view. The downside to that, which I mentioned in one of the videos, is some of them have started to develop split fins because they are competing that much harder when it comes to putting the food in the water. Not ideal, but it's just a side effect of having a small area with not a lot of room for the fish to fight over the food. They're competing hard for it, they're feeding, there's no real damage. Split fins will heal with some heat and decent water. They've got no missing scales or anything like that, but yeah, but that is the downside. So yeah, really pleased with it. As I said, it is only the first week I've used it. I'll do a longer term review and hopefully get some growth out. I've got the certificates for this small toe side that are in here with the measurements on, so we can whip that up and measure that up compared to a couple of months once they've been fed on the Saki-Hikari. Obviously this food is expensive. It has got me thinking there must be other stuff out there. Obviously some of the comments you guys made on the previous video were really interesting as well. So what I'm thinking is I may set up some test and control environments to test different foods directly against each other in the same environment. Using some smaller grow-on tanks, so maybe set up 3 or 4 tanks and at the same time attack the foods. What if you've got any that you'd like to desperately see involved in that test, then and drop them in the comments below. I'm thinking JPD. We use Saki as the baseline. Looking some JPD food and any other brands that people want to throw out there. They'll be interested to see the results of. Because again, as much as I've been impressed with this food this week, it is still very expensive, and I'm not sure that cost is justified in the sense of it's that much more than all the other foods. Obviously for what I'm using it for, very happy with it, it is working, but 190 quid for 15 kilos seems a lot of money to me, and that's not something everyone can afford. So there must be other foods out there that are, pretty good and give you a better bang for buck. But again, value and price point is always subjective to individuals and what you want out of them. I think at this moment in time, if I can keep feeding like this in my small environment, then I'll be more than happy to probably keep paying that amount of money for 15 kilo bags to keep these guys growing, as long as we get the growth. Cool. Alright, well, I've rambled on long enough. Thank you for watching, guys. Appreciate the comments on the last video, and again, like I said, chuck them below this one. I'm really interested in setting up some more test environments. I'm thinking going to go big, polytunnel, 4 or 5 grow-ons, make them all set up the same, run them exactly the same, get batches of tosai, probably pick the same varieties so they've got the same sort of genetics, and test everything from water quality, amount of food we get in there, to growth rates. So yeah, any suggestions then chuck them down. But thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe this, help us out, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye bye.